Enemies to the east. Enemies to the west. Enemies to the south. Enemies to the north. Whatever stands in our way, we will defeat it.
Hey, Game of Thrones fans. Usually on this channel, John in Theory, I don't tackle these sorts of videos. This is going to be a little bit more extemporaneous than usual, and I'm kind of just doing this in a hurry. I don't have my normal equipment, so the audio sounds strange, and I don't even usually do trailer breakdowns, but I wanted to do this one because I love Game of Thrones. I've never done a Game of Thrones video on this channel before, so we're going to do a quick breakdown of the Game of Thrones Season 7 trailer. We've been waiting for this since last year. It's a season that we wish we could have gotten in April, but they pushed it to July. It's based on material from the books, like last season, that we haven't been exposed to yet. And unlike last season, that was Winds of Winter, we're starting to get into A Dream of Spring, the final George R.R. Martin book, and it's looking like we're going to get to the conclusion of A Song of Ice and Fire through the show long before we are going to get the conclusion from the book. So an unfortunate reality for some, including myself, but we are making the best of it because it's a great show. I truly believe that despite some of its missteps, including pretty much 2/3 of Season 5, we are in for what I think is going to be a really solid finish. I think last season proved that they can do this. They can do something with Game of Thrones post George R. R. Martin's direct influence that works, that makes sense, and is epic. I mean, that's kind of what we've come to love from this show. So let's start by looking at what the trailer begins with. It's pretty simple at first glance. We see that Cersei is acknowledging that the Lannisters, who control King's Landing, are completely surrounded. If you remember from the last season, Daenerys Targaryen has assembled basically all of the forces of the South against the Lannisters. She has the support of Dorne. She has the support of the Tyrells through Olenna, because Cersei was not exactly smart in basically betraying Marjorie and Loras and enraging Olenna. And so the Reach, Dorne, and I think we can assume the Stormlands have basically already been conquered. She's already finished conquering the South, Daenerys. And in the North, of course, we have Jon's forces, who appear to be making some moves, probably to press upon the Riverlands, which are controlled by the Lannisters. Now, what's interesting about the trailer is you can sort of tell that we're already at the point where Daenerys is sieging Lannisport. So that's actually, and I could be wrong about this, but on my first dozen viewings, that definitely looks to me like Lannisport and Casterly Rock, that we see the Unsullied fighting Lannister soldiers. And that makes sense, because it's like when Robb in seasons 1 and 2 was trying to take Casterly Rock, or season 2, I should say. His plan was simple, that they had to take Casterly Rock before moving upon King's Landing. And so it looks like Daenerys is doing the same thing. And what's important about that is that if you watch closely, it looks like Melisandre is in Lannisport as well. So she's looking down. It could be editing, but it looks like if we have any sort of conciliation, if you want to call it that, between the Stark forces and the Daenerys forces, then it's probably going to be happening in this area. And we could be seeing, based on what the trailer is leading us to believe, that Jon Snow, or Jon Stark, however you want to call him, wants to basically move on from all of this stuff. Everyone's calling him the king in the North. But to my view, it looks more like he doesn't really want that. He wants everyone to band together. We see Sir Davos actually talking directly to Jon about this, about how they need to focus on uniting the Seven Kingdoms in order to take, precautions and prepare for for the actual Great War, as Jon calls it in the very end. We kind of think that he's talking about a great war in the sense of, the Lannisters versus the Starks and the Targaryens, but really, we know at this point that it's really about stopping the next long night where the White Walkers completely take over. And that makes sense because Jon has seen the White Walkers himself multiple times. Hardhome has cemented how he perceives their armies. And yeah, I really think at this point, we're not necessarily going to see a lightning effort for the North to just take over like Robb Stark tried to do. Although, technically Robb wasn't trying to take over. He was just trying to basically make the North independent and avenge Ned Stark. It looks like Jon is going to be taking the step away from that and say, no, this is about uniting everyone. So we could see potentially Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen having that conversation and him trying to convince her that, the North and the South need to band together. And that's going to be tough, obviously, because they face a huge threat from Cersei Lannister, who probably doesn't care. And it could be that they need to first take King's Landing before doing anything else. And that appears to be the nature of the conversation between Jon and Davos. Anyway, let's just take a look at some of the stills and break down very specific things that we learned from this trailer, since that's my overall takeaway. First of all, this is actually the part of the trailer where I really decided that we were seeing Lannisport early on. You see Tyrion using the Dragonstone table to topple the lion here. Definitely means to me that we've seen Lannisport get taken over probably very early on in the season, and then Daenerys moves on to Dragonstone later. In this part of the trailer, we see Littlefinger up to his usual tricks. He's manipulating Sansa. He tells her that, her brothers and her father are gone, but she's made it all the way here. And he calls her the last best hope before the storm. We don't really know what he means by that. He might be referring to the War of the Seven Kingdoms. He could, at this point, be privy to the war coming with the White Walkers. It's not really clear, and it is probably more telling that Littlefinger is still trying to find a way to maybe pit Sansa against Jon. He doesn't say Jon is the best hope, of course. He is definitely a fan of Sansa. He's a Fansa. And I think that this is going to be really important moving forward, whether or not Sansa is going to trust him or if she's forgiving him for basically saving everyone's life last season by coming through with the Knights of the Vale. And yeah, part of the reason I suspect this too is because we later see in the crypts of Winterfell that Jon is pushing Peter against the wall. Reminds me of season 1 when Ned does the same thing, and it kind of makes me sad. And I really hope the same thing doesn't happen in repeat. Oh yeah, and Theon is still in this show, so yeah. We don't get a lot of clues about what Arya is up to, but we see that she is in the north, and she's got horses, which is interesting. I always predicted that she was going to have like a Lady Stoneheart reign of terror across the Riverlands, but apparently the producers have other ideas, and maybe they're moving toward a plot where she links up with someone else. I'm not sure who she would want to kill up in the north. My mind escapes me on Northerners who are alive and are still awaiting justice, but this opens up possibilities for her to see Jon again and Sansa, maybe Bronn, and we see a lot of northern scenes in this trailer that could suggest anything. We really have no clue what could really happen. We also get a few really great shots of the Dothraki. We see some Dothraki screamers engaging in battle, which is kind of what we've been waiting for a while. I'm not quite sure what to make of this part where Arya is looking under something, and then we see a weird hand. Not sure what that could possibly be. And yeah, it wouldn't be Game of Thrones without romance. We see two different romances going on here. The first one's a bit confusing because you have Grey Worm and Missandei. I mean, they've been building up their whole romance for a few seasons, but obviously he doesn't have the equipment in order to engage in these sultry activities. That said, it looks like they're doing that sort of thing anyway. I don't know. I don't feel like speculating. And then, of course, we see Ellaria and Yara. So that's Ellaria Sand, who is now ruler of Dorne. It looks like she's been hanging out with Yara on the ships with Dany. And okay, sure. And of course, there's the final shot of the trailer, which, okay, gets you pretty hyped. We see the dragons are in the fray, and it looks like Daenerys's army is. This looks like the Reach to me, but it could possibly, potentially, be the Crown Lands, or it could be the Western Lands. But either way, we're in for some pretty big, epic fights, and a great teaser. I feel like this teaser does a great job of hyping without revealing too much. There are a few things that you can sort of get pretty quickly, including what specifically is going to happen early on in the season, but I think it works, and hopefully you agree. All right, thank you so much for hanging out with me and taking a really close look at this trailer. Let me know if I missed anything, of course, I'm sure I did. If there's anything that I said that was incorrect, be sure to correct me and clear it up for all of you who are watching so I can correct it, of course. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you like it and you want to see more videos from me. They won't be necessarily Game of Thrones videos like this, but they will they're okay. Yeah, there's going to be Game of Thrones videos. I can't help it. See you guys next time.